Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Thursday, September 29th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris here with you, or Mike and Sully if you are following a popular tweet that's been bouncing around the internet for the last 24 hours or so. Somebody put a tweet out there that was, I think every podcast duo are just these guys. And it was a picture of Sully and Mike from Monsters, Inc. And I think it was determined by one of our listeners that I am Mike, the guy, the green guy with one eye, because of my bright, shiny forehead, thanks to my light being in the wrong position, which is so flattering, but probably deserved. Totally deserved.
All right. Well, I'm the big monster then.
Right. And he has the all-time scare record, too.
Yeah.
And he's got the cool fur, right? The blue and green, teal, purple. I don't know. It's a lot of
Maybe
fun
I should
colors.
go for him for Halloween. Go as him for Halloween.
That'd be pretty good. Yeah.
Make one of my kids dress up as.
Yeah, one of your kids would probably want to be the other one, or if they refuse, I can contribute. I like Halloween. It's a fun.
The size, the proportions are wrong though.
Yes,
it works better with one of my kids.
Do you have a best Halloween costume that you ever had? One that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, my best ever was in tandem with my wife. I was Kenny G when I had my long hair.
I've seen the pictures of this. This is incredible.
And all I had to do, other than I didn't like for the hair wise, instead of parting in the middle, I just had to part like Kenny G, and I look almost exactly like him.
You said to get an old shirt from the 90s.
Yeah, I had to get like a mock turtleneck or something, and like, and I made like I forget what the name of his instrument is.
That's a saxophone, I believe.
No,
Kenny G plays a saxophone,
but he also plays like a straight one. It's like a straight flute. It's like is
that a tin whistle?
No. Like an oboe or something. It's like a clarinet or something. It's like one of those mouth instruments. I don't think it was a sax.
Yeah, well, that's the main one he plays, but he plays other stuff apparently.
Well,
clearly, I'm not a big Kenny G fan.
I was singing the seminal song, the do 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 do, and I made the instrument from that song, and my wife dressed up as Jackie O, and we were the OGs. And
so you did like a pun. You did a mashup pun tandem costume that doesn't. I mean, there's no overlap for them otherwise.
No, but it was still fun. Like when we were in New York at the time, we went to a Fisher Spooner concert, and they have like great like Halloween concerts. And in the train on the way in, my section of the train was going Kenny G. And in the bathroom at the Fisher Pursuers concert, this guy basically peed himself looking at me next to me in the stall, which is a little bit awkward.
It's a little extreme.
I didn't hit, a little bit awkward. But even though I didn't win, it was a competition between the Gates. You remember the Gates? It was a art installation in New York at the time. The guy who does covers things in paper or covers things in you know that guy?
Mm-mm.
Christo, I think his name is. He had done a thing in New York where it was just these big orange gates, and someone went as a big orange gate. It was very of the time, I guess. And then I think the guy who won was the sweep the leg Johnny guy. And he looked really, I mean, he really looked like the guy.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, he just really looked like him. So they didn't pick me to go on stage, but when somebody peed himself in the bathroom, I felt like,
honorable mention.
The honorable mention.
That was. Yeah. I think my best, I don't have anything that was that creative, but there was one year, Halloween is a big deal in Madison on campus. It's one of the many, many excuses at the university for people to drink way too much. Yeah. But they have a big block party on State Street, and that's turned into some concerts in recent years. Anyway, so one year as an undergrad, I really half-assed getting a costume, and I went to, I don't know, Party City or whatever the supply store was that had this stuff. I went the morning of Halloween and I walked into the back corner of the store where the clearance stuff was. I was really really half-assing this. And they had a SpongeBob SquarePants costume, which was actually a pretty good pull. This was like 2004, 2005. So SpongeBob still very relevant back then. Probably will always be relevant in some way.
Right.
It was a children's large, if I remember correctly. And it was like this, foam sponge with full SpongeBob on it.
Barely didn't fit. It didn't fit you.
It was about $15. I thought that's a steal. $15. I could wear this SpongeBob for multiple years. So I bought it and I brought it home, and I realized my arms weren't even going to fit through the armholes. So I had to rip the armholes bigger, which I've never had to do in my life because I do not have massive arms. You've seen me in person. I have normal skinny arms. Yeah. And it turned out okay, actually, because one, everybody was wasted. So no one really noticed how awkwardly it fit. And by the time I got out at 10, 11 o'clock, it was more just like, hey, SpongeBob. Everyone loved it. The costume was destroyed because I thought I could use it as an actual sponge while wearing it. I was trying to clean up from the party we were having. So I was just kind of like rolling around. Like we had a beer pong table. So this was water and beer spilled all over it. And I just thought, no problem, guys. I got this. And I kind of did like this rolling maneuver to soak it all up, which worked really well in the moment. Now, in the moment, I thought I was a genius. I, found the costume the next day and realized, whoa, that's garbage now. But I had a good time. I got probably $15 worth of cleaning supplies out of the costume, and a lot of high fives and laughs along the way. Which to me, if you're measuring success with a Halloween costume, that ticks pretty much all the boxes.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I guess my second place was Bob Ross, where I froed my hair out and just had like a little palette and was like, I kept talking about, he's always talking about bushes, just happy little bushes.
Right. And there's a few colors on the palette that are very distinct Bob Ross colors.
But he always, they were happy or they were sad, or like he would like always anthropomorphize his bushes and his trees. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, all right. So
about that.
I think I lack features that make it easy for me to be a distinct famous person as a costume on my own. The best I can do, the famous person that people say I look like once in a while, is I'll get a Tony Romo if I'm wearing a backwards hat. So you have to kind of cut off my hairline. My hair's not totally different than his, but it's not his. So if I throw on a backwards hat, that's Tony Romo on the sidelines. That's what he looks like.
No, you can probably get there cheap to get a little Romo jersey and
get a jersey and the white backwards hat. Yeah,
white backwards hat, and you're done.
So maybe now that he's prominent broadcaster too, I could just throw on a suit instead and just get really excited about plays that aren't happening. I have to get my voice to be a little hoarse though, and then I can get that out there. So, all right, Halloween solved. I know that's not the first 8 minutes of the pod everyone was hoping for going into the weekend.
Well, it's only going to get better from here. We're going to talk about.
Well, what do you want to talk about?
Our fantasy teams. Nobody cares about your fantasy teams, dude.
Well, we're trying to learn things from our teams. So if you'd like the floor first, you are having a great season in AL LABR. What can you tell us about it that will actually help us? You can brag as much as you want along the way.
It's beautiful because I'm 3 saves now from having 117 out of 120 possible points. And it's been such a long time coming and this is the record by like sort of 6. I think Ian Kahn set the record last year with 110. So this is the record by 6 or 7. We'll see at the end of the year. And I feel great about that because it took so long to get here. And now maybe I'll have something I can hold on to for a while. And when you do something like this, of course, it's 12s across the board. But the thing that had been hurting me in the past was that I always just sort of depended on my knowledge of the pitching pool to come up with pitchers. And I always did really well in hitting with hewing close to my projections. This year, I did put a little bit more money into pitching. And I also maybe figured out how to use my model the most correctly. And the thing that I like about what I did on the pitching side was instead of buying one $30 Garrett Cole or Shane Bieber, which, that probably both of those guys returned a good value. I wanted to have 3 really good pitchers, and I wanted to spend an average of $15 for on my top 3 guys. Or maybe a little bit south of that. But in the end, I got Jose Barrios, Dylan Cease, and Shane McClanahan. And the combined expenditure was below $45, I think. So, that's a good trio. Jose Barrios did not have a good year, but Dylan Cease and Shane McClanahan had such outstanding years that they really powered this. And I really think that is something I can take away, which is the model is really good at looking at short sample pitchers and knowing how good they are. And so therefore, buying high on some short sample guys is a good move. Like a Spencer Strider next year, like buying him as a number 2 next year would be similar to. Wouldn't that be similar to like buying Shane McClanahan this year as a 2? Or as a
similar, I think. I
not
wonder.
Exactly in terms of what kind of pitchers they are, but
but in terms of the track record,
in terms of how much pitching plus pitching plus loves them,
innings workloads, I think are pretty comparable. McClanahan 123 and a third last year as a rookie, but Strider's results were better, so Strider's going to carry more of a premium, higher strikeout rate, better ratios.
So you think he'll go as a number 1? He's not going to go as a number 1 though.
Yes, I think Spencer Strider. I think Spencer Strider is going to be treated as a number 1 starter. I was working on the 2023 rankings a little bit. They are not even close to being ready, of course. But actually, I have them right next to each other. I have Strider next to McClanahan, and I was trying to have a cage match to figure out which one I would actually take at 7 overall among pitchers.
Okay, so then give me a mulligan.
It's okay. It's not.
No. I'm just saying. In order of finding the next season, McClanahan. Give me Hunter Green.
That would be fair because I don't think he'll be treated as any in a mono league context. $15 seems like a cap, like a ceiling.
Okay, Hunter Green, I think is the Dylan Cease.
Okay, that seems very doable.
I'm scrolling down in Stuff Plus. I'll find Shane. There's Shane himself.
We had a lot of Tristan McKenzie talk in our last episode.
I mean, Nick Lodolo.
Lodolo could be in there for NL. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys that like I might go the extra buck to get to like 12, 13, 14, right? And really just like believe a short sample season.
There's one. How about John Gray? Because he's not young and exciting, but it's 116 innings, I think, is where he was at. 364 ERA, 111 WHIP.
Change over the course of the season, where his slider changed shape. That's a decent one. It's not exactly the same thing, but
or even Drew Rasmussen, a guy that you've liked for a long time. That's not doing it for 180, but is pitching really well over nearly a full season's worth of innings.
So, I don't know if I've got it all lined up exactly to be the same way. I doubt I'll have 117 points in LABR next year. Aaron Ashby, another guy that Stuff Plus loves him. Didn't have great results. The locations are below average, but not bad. Could totally take a Dylan Cease like jump next year. So that I think was good. Also, this team is a real champion of how good Pitching Plus is for relievers because the relievers so one of the tricks I pulled on this one was they took free agents out of the pool because of the lockout. So the top free agents were out of the pool. I spent like, I don't know, I think it was like $72 on Anthony Rizzo out of my free agency out of $100. And that really worked out, of course, but it also left me $28. I basically remember I had a little bit more than $1 per week.
It's not a lot for a full season.
And so I came out of the auction because Pitching Plus is so solid. I came out of the auction with Jordan Romano as the third or fourth best, most expensive reliever. And I think I got him for like 18, 19 bucks, which I love. 18, 19 bucks is where I love to buy closers. I know it doesn't line up with the value on the value sheet, but that just means that I got like the third or fourth best closer. And it's really been working out with me, especially while using Stuff Plus. But I came out of the auction with Jordan Romano for 19, and Tyler Wells and Tanner Scott for $1 each. Those are just model likes, and I got more than $1 out of Tyler Wells, and I got more than $1 out of Tanner Scott because I eventually dropped him because I was doing so well that I didn't want the bad whip in ERA, and I knew nobody could pick him up and get his saves. So I got 10-ish saves out of him and was like, man, this ERA is not going to be good, I don't think. So I just let him go. But I also then picked up Schreiber, and I picked up Jorge Lopez in my first free agency period for $1. Because Pitching Plus said this is going to be a good reliever. He's going to be a good reliever. So I picked up him and Dylan Tate for $1 each, and eventually dropped Tate. But so I think, what I like is getting one really good reliever that is not the most expensive reliever. So I still like that idea. And then supplementing it with relievers that the model really likes. I think that has been a good approach for me this year.
I think one of the tough things about thinking this way, this is a good way to think about how to build a roster, is you still need to have the pivots. You still need to have the what if this happens, because that group of closers you trust that will go in that range is actually still a pretty small group. And it might happen where other people trying to execute the same strategy in the moment push the extra couple dollars onto those players that you have in the 16 to 19 range, and they go 20 to 23. And you run through that problem where you say, okay, the first guy, I'm not going to pay 20, 21. Second guy goes for the same. And then the third one's the last one. And if you don't decide in the moment, or if you don't like the third one as much as the first two, you don't get that piece that you want. Then you have to decide, okay, what's the other thing I can do if my first plan doesn't work? I think to me, it's a really important part of the planning process.
It really is. And even though among starting pitchers, I have the numbers down in front of me. Shane for 15, Cease for 18, Barrios for 22. So it was a little bit more than 45, but I do still like spending at that level for starting pitchers, because they're going to pitch. It's not, there's not the risk that they get sent back down. You know what I mean? Those are guys who are going to pitch. With relievers, the mid-range is awful. I really do think it's awful. You know what I mean? Like buying an $8 closer in AL only.
Oh yeah, Mark Melancon was awesome for me this year.
Right? Was that kind of like an $8 NL only closer?
It was I have to go cheap on saves because I spent too much on other stuff in my biggest auction. And it'll be fine because they'll just let him get 30 saves even though he's not good anymore. It's like, no. The Mark Melancon problem I experienced this year is it's kind of like what I described with Whit Merrifield back during draft season, where I said in previous years, I didn't believe and I didn't believe and I didn't believe. And I was wrong. I took L's in like 3 consecutive seasons on Whit Merrifield. So then this year I decided maybe I'm just wrong about Whit Merrifield. I like him now. Shocker. I warned everyone. I'm in on Merrifield now, so it's probably going to stop working. It stopped working. So 4 L's. I changed sides and still lost again in year 4 on Whit Merrifield.
Hey, sometimes you just got to stick to your guns, dude.
I know, but in the moment when I was scrambling for saves, I told myself that story. Well, they brought him in because they needed an established closer and they have a lot of uncertainty in that bullpen. No, they brought him in at a low price because nobody else in the league thought he was good enough to help their bullpen. That's what happened. That's the truth. Accept it. Like I will not stop being mad about that until like the end of next season when I have a chance to right my wrongs. It's going to take me so long to get over that.
I mean, the major league teams get it wrong sometimes, but their free agency price is actually a pretty good sense of like how valued they are by the league.
If they confirm something that you yourself already thought, you should probably not push back against that. There's other things to push back against, plenty of things to go your own way on. That was a time to stick to your own beliefs because they've been supported by what the market did.
Oh, I should give us some love. Somebody pointed out that I did give a bold prediction for Nate Lowe for 30 homers and made sure I bought him in AL LABR and have profited off of my $14 Nate Lowe. He's not going to make it to the 30 homers, but especially in AL only, a 305 average with 25 homers and 75 RBI by the end of the season. He'll have 75. I think that was a good buy. And what I like about Nate Lowe is, again, it's not buying Bobby. What's a young guy that didn't even really register that people were buying early in the season? Was there anybody?
Torkelson?
Yeah, it's not buying Torkelson where there's just no track record and you're just hoping. It's buying someone who has some track record and thinking they might take a step forward and thinking that the job is pretty much there for them, you know? So I like having a good floor with like a little bit of ceiling above that. That's what I bought. That's why I bought Nate Lowe for 14, Hunter Dozier for 9. That's not very exciting, but you know, he played all year, 12 homers, 4 steals, you know. Stephen Kwan in reserve, Josh Naylor for $1, Brandon Marsh for 7. None of these guys, you know, especially if you play like a 12 team, you're like, well, why are you listing these guys, you know? But in AL only, they all got more than 400 ABs. And they all, you know, contributed double-digit homers and steals. And so that was a big part of it. The last part I want to say off this team is Jose Altuve was my second baseman. And that just fits into what we've been saying about how elite players have slightly different aging curves, and that, you know, there is some value to be had. Jose Altuve for $25 means that I bought him basically like a third rounder in AL only, and he gave me 28 homers and 18 steals, the 297 average. So that's your Paul Goldschmidt, you know, from previous episodes.
Yeah,
that was my Paul Goldschmidt of the year. So the Paul Goldschmidt award goes to Jose Altuve.
Yeah, so in past years, I've been more aggressive about having at least 1 star and sometimes even 2 in deep leagues. I'll spend 30 plus on multiple players, you know, 2 position players and an ace.
You do that more than me. You do that more than me. You go higher, and
I've historically done that
scrubs
a lot, and I backed off it a little bit this year, and I did.
But you've won using that approach.
I've won playing that way, and I think my range of outcomes was wider playing that way. I think I could also finish 8th a lot easier.
You ain't first, you're last.
I think so. I think that was the way I played it for a long time. But I still, my thinking is that there's probably diminishing returns on stars and scrubs if more people play that way. You're fighting for the same players, so then the top end gets pushed up even higher.
And you all want the same $2 players.
And you've all identified the end game players you like, so it just becomes trickier to play at both ends of the pool at a certain point when the room shifts enough that way. And I've seen enough of the leagues. I mean, I think mixed out, the 15-team auction was probably the first of the leagues I play in where it was clear that people largely were trying to execute the same game plan I wanted to execute. And I got away from it this year to the most extreme degree there. And it worked. That looks like probably the team that is all around the most successful. Took a couple trades to balance it out because I went so heavy with bats and pretty light with arms. But all of that is to say, like, I think you need to be willing to play to what is happening in the room when you're playing in an auction setting.
I did a little bit of that here where I missed out on Jose Ramirez, and I probably should have gone the extra $1. And so I did make a mistake on this team. I bought Kyle Tucker for 38, which is really pushing, you know, that made him like the second or third most expensive player in the pool. But what happened was I saw after Kyle Tucker, oh man, if I don't get Kyle Tucker, my number 1 player is going to be Eloy Jimenez or Luis Robert. And I was just like, I just see more risk there. Kyle Tucker seems like a high floor guy that could go 30-30 this year. He's going to be short of it, 29 homers, 25 steals. Probably not going to be the, you know, top 3 player in AL only. But it shows you can still make a mistake, but make the right move in a way. You know what I mean? because I was just reading the room and I was like, I want one of those top players. I've played the middle too much and ended up third in this league. I don't want third, so I went to 38 on Kyle Tucker and felt really weird about it afterwards. But he's part of this team. He did a good job. I don't know if he returned me $38, but I'm happy with it.
Well, the shape of the player pool and other variables are important too. And this isn't unique to auctions. I think if you're in a snake draft, and depending on your draft position, especially if you're near one of the ends, a lot can change with the board between turns. And everything you do, if you're trying to have a balanced team in a rotisserie league, everything you end up doing needs to get you to your targets in the end. And the cost of early closers might be established hitters or upper end starting pitchers, or there's always a cost to the decision that you make. So I'm looking at, on the flip side, right? Your AL LABR team is kind of a, hey, I did this worked really well. I'm going to try and do most of these things again. Situations allowing me to do them again. My TGFBI team was an exercise in how much of this do I want to avoid in the future? Like how many things should I be doing differently compared to this particular build? I'll see if I can get the draft on the screen. It's a little tiny if you're watching us on YouTube, but it's doable. Curious if you can look at that grid and if you could tell me which of those teams you think belongs to me.
All right, here we go. Well, you did. You seem like you did poorly, but I'm not going to give you the Tatis team. I think that would be a hard one to take a bunch of lessons away from.
I think it's there's a little bit of a giveaway, but
is it injury like starters? Is it the Tatis team with Freddie Peralta?
It is not.
Oh. I don't think you would have taken Hendricks as your first starting pitcher.
I would not.
Is it the Harper one with Ray as your first starting pitcher?
Nope.
So you didn't wait on. Oh no, it's the Mookie Betts one with Romano as your first pitcher.
It's not. That team actually, I think, was pretty good this year. I mean, that's Betts, Alvarez.
I just thought maybe
Riley.
Because you waited too long on pitching.
Nah, so I had team 5 on the screen. I started with Juan Soto. I started safe. I took the safe player at 5. I was happy. Jumping up and down when Juan Soto made it to me there. Walker Buehler in the second. There were some caution signs on the skills front with Buehler, but he broke, so that didn't help. Hader in the third. That was also the early closer. Yeah, just didn't do what I expected him to do. Olsen was fine in the fourth. Springer in the fifth. That was probably fine. Jonathan India hurt in the sixth. Jack Flaherty in the seventh hurt.
Ooh,
Trent Grisham.
Both your top 2 pitchers broke. I should have seen that.
Trent Grisham in the 8th. That's just a bad choice. Gleiber in the 9th. He's been okay, but I don't know. Like that didn't turn out quite the way I expected it to. Blake Trinan in the 10th. I mean, he got hurt. Well, he didn't get hurt until after they traded for Craig Kimbrell. Kimbrell's what ruined his value. So that pick ended up being a waste. Brian Hayes hasn't hit for power. So that didn't work. Severino, fine. That was a good pick. Sonny Gray, 13th round. That's fine. Lux in the 14th. He had a good year, but that pick should have been used for something else. Conforto
didn't even play.
Didn't play. Yeah.
Vasquez Murphy, actually, that's the one part I like.
Good job on the catchers.
Yeah, good job on cheap catching.
So I've been staring at this team a few times, and
maybe you should have invested more in starting pitching.
Probably because I only had 2 starting pitchers.
You've taken Buehler, and then you've taken somebody ahead of Flaherty. Even if Buehler breaks, then the second guy could have been your ace.
Yeah, I got really fixated on those hitter values in rounds 4 through 6, probably because I took Hader in the 3rd.
And everybody else was taking relievers in 4 through 6.
Yep. So I pushed for the best of the best reliever on my board at the highest possible price. It backfired.
But sometimes you can look at like, oh, there's so much value on these hitters in 4 through 6. Well, maybe I should take something else and let that value sit out there and let it sit some longer. And there's still a bunch of value. That means the next round I'll still get more value. I'll still get somebody that's good.
So I like to think that if Justin Verlander were still there in the 8th, I would have taken a 3rd starting pitcher instead of Trent Grisham. But I also had a shot at Carlos Rodon and Shane McClanahan with that pick and didn't do it. So That's the killer. The pick that could have at least made this team
That would have made the team
a
better.
top 5 team in the league. McClanahan for Grisham would be a pretty big swap. Because you can't. I mean, injuries happen. I think we talked about Jack Flaherty earlier this season. Maybe that was poorly assessing the injury risk that he brought and being willing to take on a starter in a spot where, frankly, I needed someone who didn't bring those concerns. Maybe Yu Darvish would have been a great pick there. Darvish went a few picks later. That could have worked. So part of retracing my steps here is the closer thing at the very top, early round 3. How much of that was kind of random bad luck, and how much of that was self-imposed because you did this, because you went starter reliever in 2 and 3. Now you're locked in on hitting values 4 through 6, and because of that, you ended up a little bit light with starting pitching depth. Maybe there's a small tweak there, maybe there's a wholesale change there, but I've been hesitant to want to go into next season targeting the elite of the elite relievers in snake drafts because of how early they were going at the end of 2022.
Here's what happens when you don't do that, when you don't target an elite reliever in the snake drafts. I'm second in my main, and I'm not saying this is a cautionary tale or anything, but because second and main, the main events are very hard. But I ended up 6th in saves, so I found my way to 55 saves. Gosh, I wish I had gotten 10 more. That would have made me 3rd. 10 more saves. And this is how my draft started. Tucker, Machado, Real Muto. Eno doesn't have a starting pitcher.
Really good core, though.
Already really nervous. Please, Zach Wheeler. Please, Zach Wheeler. Drop to me. We just gotten news that Zach Wheeler had thrown a bullpen and was like on track to maybe miss 1 start. Zach Wheeler in the 4th. All right. But Zach Wheeler, that's the late ace. Joe Musgrove in the 5th. Now, I like that. That's something I want to keep that nervousness with me next year. I want to, even if I take a first pitcher in the top 3 rounds, I still want to be nervous about pitching. I want to manufacture nervousness about starting pitching next year so that even if I get the guy I wanted to fall to me, I don't say, oh, well, I got Zach Wheeler. I can wait a couple rounds for my next pitcher. Nah, you know what? My rankings say just Joe Musgrove's a top 12 pitcher. Let's get him in here too. So that was really, really important. This is one of my few NFBC leagues where I'm not short on Ks. I've streamed in all of them and tried to get 2 started pitching in all of them all year. Been trying to work on Ks, and a lot of those leagues I'm low on Ks. This one I'm not because I took 2 top pitchers. I mean, it makes total sense when you think of it that way. It's like, oh yeah, duh. You invested in it and you did well in it. So that part was good. However, you notice I have not mentioned a reliever yet. So when I took Musgrove, I was like, you know who's left on the board? Romano. I think it was the Musgrove pick. Was Romano and Gallegos are on the board. I don't really want Gallegos. I do want Romano, but I want Musgrove more. So I took the leap of faith that if I take Musgrove, one of those 2 will be available. Worst case, I get Gallegos. Romano, Gallegos, go. And I think they were even second relievers for some of those guys. So that's why I thought maybe they'll make him back around the turn. So now I'm just totally depressed. I go Jonathan India, blah. Christian Yelich, all right. Dansby Swanson, yeah, he put together a pretty good season. So I'm depressed that I didn't get one of my top guys, and I've just let some other relievers go because I'm just like, whatever. I don't care about Aroldis Chapman. That might have been okay, but my number 1 reliever was David Bednar.
No, it was going well until he got hurt.
Yeah, and he was pretty good, but because I was like, well, David Bednar's not enough, and I gotta. So then I had to invest some more, and pushed Gregory Soto. Now Gregory Soto did okay for me too, but I came out of the draft with my relievers were David Bednar, Gregory Soto, and I thought I bought Tyler Wells and Tyler Rogers at the end as some shots at it.
But you got 2
Isn't that
clear
crazy
closers.
that I ended up still 6th in saves?
The threshold for saves seemed a little bit lower again this year.
So I don't think it's a big argument for me to be like, oh, I need a closer in the second or third, but I do need a closer before the 8th.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Again, numbers between 3 and 8. Consider them. Yeah. That's the part. So there's so many strategies where like I'm doing this. Like, well, you could do just a little less than that, and that might work really well.
Do a little bit less than that. That'd be good.
I want 3 aces in the first 3 rounds. Like, try 2.
Two would be good. You have
2
a pretty good
might
hitter
break.
if you did that.
Just think about 2 as an option. It's there, So I'm guilty of this. I've done this much more in the past where this is my strategy and I will execute my strategy because it's important to have a game plan and it's more important to execute that game plan. It's like, no, have multiple game plans and be capable of executing each of those because the one you want probably isn't going to happen exactly the way you want. Other people in the room know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is the root cause of coming up short in this main, because my general strategy was wait on pitching, trust your model, still invest, still get Wheeler and Musgrove in the top 5 rounds, but wait on pitching, trust your model. And I waited just a little bit long. I'd wonder I wonder how much better this team would have been if I let Musgrove go. He gets back to me. I go Romano Musgrove. Wheeler Romano Musgrove means I don't take India.
Well, even if
means Gleyber Torres is probably my second baseman.
So okay, he's healthy at least. So if you take that route, let's just say Musgrove does go, but you ended up with Romano instead. That's still a net positive because more likely than not, with your strength as a player, you're finding someone similar to Musgrove later on.
Oh, and what I want to know now is where I took Musgrove. What is the next pitcher I would have taken if I let him go? Okay, so Romano goes around the turn. I remembered correctly. So if Musgrove had gone then, my next pick. So after that, then I have to look for who's available after I go. I take Romano instead of Musgrove, and then Musgrove goes. Barrios. I might have ended up with Barrios.
See, okay, so that could have been
that would have been bad.
A different
Romano
path to the
Barrios would have been
same
bad.
ceiling.
Yeah. If I had been lucky and the Rodon guy got him, I might have gone Romano Rodon. But I think also if you say there's 2 closers left in the pool that I like a little bit, and I like one way better than the other, and there's now like 8 picks before I pick again, take Romano. Yeah,
take the play if there's a big drop off with the closers,
and there's even worse of a drop off after Gallegos, where you're just like, I don't even want the guy after Gallegos, and I want Romano way more than Gallegos. Then take Romano.
I think that's the right way to play, but I also think more people playing that way is what keeps pushing prices higher and higher on closers. Keeps inflating even more than what we've seen.
But you got to play in the pool you're given,
Yeah, that's if you play in this this vacuum of value where I can't. It's an $18 player. It's round 4. I can't take an $18 closer here because there's a $23 hitter, so I'm taking the $23 hitter. Well, guess what? Now you're going to have a $6 reliever.
Now David Bednar is your number 1 reliever, and everyone thought I reached on Bednar, so you're going to reach at some point, right?
I guess then the devil's advocate argument would be, well, do you want to reach in rounds 3, 4, or 5, or would you rather just reach in like round 8, 9, or 10?
Yeah,
because the cost of missing in 8, 9, or 10
exactly my thinking. But Romano in round 5 is that a 1-round reach, and Bednar in round 9 might have been like a 3-round reach.
Compared to what though? Because that. Part of our value constructs are
like universal.
They're
in one draft,
and we're talking about NFBC and main event leagues that are a smaller portion of that compared to a broader
even
universe.
The whole universe of
else.
NFBC. Yeah, and even within NFBC, Maine is like its own little subculture.
Then there's late March versus beginning of draft season. Like there's all those wrinkles. It's just. I don't think we identify quickly enough how much the micro market, I guess we'll call it, is just different. The best players get it, but for less experienced players trying to play in these events, and I think I qualify as a less experienced player in this particular field, that's a tough lesson to learn.
One other thing that is interesting in these leagues is in my main that ended up second, I made a lot of mistakes. Joey Votto in the 10th. We're talking about sort of the Bednar Soto thing. Marcus Stroman in the 12th is all right. I think he actually made it all the way through the rest of the season. But then okay, so these are not that many mistakes. Interesting. Well, Luis Patino, I went on a string of Luis Patino, Mike Yastrzemski, Max Stassi, Cesar Hernandez, Mike Moustakas, Luke Weaver, Reaver San Martin. Don't stress that much about rounds like 20 through 30. Take guys that have a great amount of ceiling and will tell you something early in the season and drop them quickly. Because rounds 20 through 30, not very many of them make it with you to the end of the season.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm laughing a little bit because on the TGFBI team I was just talking about a few minutes ago, my 20th round pick, Julio Rodriguez.
Oh, but he didn't make it with you.
I mean, he made it.
He did. Yeah, he's on the team. Yeah,
I'm just laughing because the team was such a disaster. It's like,
but you made that one great pick.
You crushed it in the 20th round. You survived. You did about 12% of the things right that you need to do to have a good competitive team. So that's terrific. Look at this. Look at the bottom of this roster. Working from the bottom, Adrian Hauser must have been streaming. That's the only explanation. AJ Puck, Reaver San Martin, Keston Hira, Josh Lowe, Nick Senzel, Anthony Bender, Mike Moustakas, Kyle Lewis. Did any of those guys play this year?
But don't beat yourself up over those.
But those are free kicks at the can to do well, to find players
you did miss. Identify. I mean, you did miss the kicks, but
I've missed all over on the bottom of this team. Usually,
but you got Julio Rodriguez in that group.
I mean, yeah.
Here's a beginning that I really like. Ended up second in TGFBI in my league, and I went Betts, Woodruff, Simeon, Goldschmidt, Musgrove, Romano. That's what I want to try. That's how I want to start again. I want to get one starting pitcher in the top 3. I like the old first baseman who drops. I love that I doubled up on the pitching and got Musgrove and Woodruff. I love that I got Romano. My mistakes there were more in the middle rounds, I guess, or maybe in management or whatever. How much do you beat yourself up over a second place finish? I don't know.
So before we started recording, I was throwing this at you from a long-term league perspective too, because in XFL, it's a 15-team keeper league, very tough league. It's been around for a while, and I've been in the league. I think this is my 5th season I've been a part of it, and it's been a little bit of a rebuild. And this year, back in mid-May, I looked at my team and I looked at the other teams in the league, and I thought it was good enough to make a run. So I made a bunch of trades, traded some young players, traded away some draft picks, tried to make a run for this year, and I'm going to finish no closer than 10 points out of first. Like, it's just not, I was never close enough in the second half to actually make more trades. But if I finish second, which is possible, 1 point between me and second place right now, that seems like a pretty good year. I mean, this is an industry league where there's no money attached, but think about a typical league where second place gives you a few $100 usually. That's good. You'd feel really good about that. And I think in keeper leagues, we have the flags fly forever. If you mortgage your future in some way to play for now, you either have to win or it was a disappointment. And I'm not sure that's entirely true because, again, there are 14 other people in this league that are all trying just as hard as I am to win in the long run. So it's not easy to win. And I think measuring success with a top 2, top 3 finish is still appropriate in this case.
Yeah. And I think this is important for fans as well. Is I'm not like World Series or bust. I'm not big on that fan wise. I feel like if you're the Padres, man, you make the postseason this year and they don't win they won't win the World Series. There's got to be some love in that season for you. You know what I mean? It's been a tough road for a while, to just even get back to the postseason. Maybe you can say like this is step 1, But I think what makes it tough in our leagues is we're, I would say generally the great way to go and win dynasty leagues is mostly to fade prospects and to try and win now. And people overvalue prospects and overvalue youth, I think, generally. However, when you look at the stars of the game, the very top stars of the game, so many of them were top prospects, you know? And so if there's just any way that you can hold on to somebody that might be a top 5 prospect and sell everything else, that's the golden rule I'm trying to, the sort of threading the needle, as the GMs say. That's the threading the needle I'm trying to get to, because, you know, you will find, like I have in Devil's Rejects, that sometimes the middle ground just ends you up at sort of 7th to 3rd. And we kind of bounce around from 7th to 3rd every year because we're always constantly selling prospects and trying to win. And that cycle has not netted us any of the top 10 prospects, you know? Like we had another year where we're going to end up 7th or 6th, and we have a decent team, but it's getting older. And our top prospects are Matt Mervis, and well, hold on. Let me find another one. Matt Mervis, a Junior Caminero. I don't know. I don't even know who that is really. We Spencer Steer just graduated. So yeah, our top prospects were Matt Mervis and Spencer Steer. So it's just one of those things where over the course of the year, you sell and you sell and you sell, and you just don't have a top prospect. Now, I just don't have the stomach sometimes. Like we do sell at the end of the year, we'll sell, you know, if we're out of it, and we'll sell a guy, but we'll sell, you know, a reliever and you know, an old outfielder, and just try and get, you know, a couple guys. And really what I should do is next year consider selling Ozzy Albies, you know, and JT Realmuto, and maybe even putting them in a package and being like, hey, I'm going to put together Ozzy Albies and JT Realmuto, and I want your Corbin Carroll and, you know, another couple of really good prospects. And that seems to really work for some people. I've never had the stomach to do it. Like, for example, in my auto new leagues, I had one of the worst years, and I should have probably sold Trey Turner. And you know, who's my other, I don't know. I should have sold Trey Turner. Instead, I sold around the edges. And I did manage to put together a prospect package of, I have Ezekiel Tovar, Robert Hassel III, Ellie De La Cruz, and Pete Crow Armstrong. That's okay. It's a 12-team league, though. It's kind of the equivalent of my Devil Rejects squad, you know, prospect squad.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I don't think there's a top 5 prospect in there.
I think there has to be, just, we've said this before, you have to have a clear sense of direction in a long-term league. You have to know. Like,
and I don't have the patience. I always want to win next year. I want to build a good team for this coming year.
I think then you have to ask your questions in a different sort of way. You have to look at the quality of the teams that are trying to win right now. Are the teams that did long-term rebuilds playing for a title this year? And can you, with older players, veteran players, the easier to acquire players in a league like that, can you compete with those teams? And how many teams are there? Is there one potential powerhouse playing for right now? Or are there 3? If there are 3, I would argue that you have to play more for a future season. If it's only 1, you have to consider the possibility that a couple of injuries, a couple underperformers, a couple of things can go wrong for that team that played for the long future, even though that's like those
numbers are bigger for the 20-team league, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. It's 4 or 5 teams probably in a 20-team league, and at least 2 at a minimum should be playing for a title that are long-term builders. Should be like 2 potential super teams in a 20-team league if you're assuming a usual sort of group of players.
Uh-huh.
But I do think the number of teams contending right now that have that long-term rebuild, that should probably help you decide if it's time to play for a future year or if you should keep at playing for the current ones. It's not easy because in XFL, Doug Dennis, just to use this league as an example again, 15-team league. and it's a league that uses salaries. So, minor league players that you had or traded for increase really slowly. So he has this core: Bo Bichette, Rafael Devers, Acuna, Tatis, Eloy Jimenez,
Jeez.
Albies, and he's got prospects now
15
too.
15-team league?
It's a 15-team league. So it's a really well-built team. Obviously, there were a lot of injuries within that group this year. So this was not a year where I think he expected to contend and quickly realized, nope, I've got to get some more future value and I'm going to go for it again next year. The pitching, I think he might have had older pitching that he traded away because the pitching is not loaded up quite the same way. But the point is, like, you can have what looked like a juggernaut team on paper a year ago in the offseason, going into this season. And it didn't end up playing out that way, which is wild. But if you see 2 or 3 teams that are like that, you're probably better off looking to a future window, a year or 2 down the road, if your own core, is older and not nearly as deep as something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's always league dynamics, like we've been saying earlier about other leagues, like, in Devil's Rejects, it's very low likelihood that the guy with Corbin Carroll would even give me Corbin Carroll.
You run into that problem a lot of times too.
Even if I did offer up JT Realmuto and Ozzie Albies, they might be like, I don't know. But
their situation, like just because they've got one of the best prospects in baseball, they might be a year or 2 away. So making that trade right, the timing has to work and the willingness has to be there. They have to see enough value in what you're offering to be willing to trade a player like that. All those conditions have to be right. How many teams in your league clutch prospects? I mean, maybe rightfully so because of the long-term value and all those factors. But if the league as a whole is too clingy to prospects, then maybe you should play it the way you are, where you're always trying to play for right now. Because if you're consistently finishing top 6, top 7 out of 20 teams, and you've been even getting as high as 3rd, all it's going to take is the year where a couple of extra injuries, a couple things break your way, and you end up winning. And you didn't wait 3 years of not contending to get that chance, which I think is a lot more fun. If you can just keep playing, keep playing. If you have to tear it down, then accept it and do it the right way. But if you gave me a choice, what would you rather do? I'd rather be in the position you described where I can just keep trying to find long-term value, but also play more for now because that's the best way I can play.
Yeah. Yep. It's been a tough year for me in my dynasty leagues, just generally. And I think I'm going to take at least one of them and be like, okay, I'm going to try a full rebuild over here. Just one of them.
It's a special set of skills, I think. I mean, Tom Trudeau is the name that comes in my head every single time when I think about someone who's
buying and selling. He does a good job of it.
It's a volume thing too. It's just being willing to.
I don't have the time in my life, man. I got so many leagues. I don't have the time to put together that many. I have an interesting in Fangraphs staff. I was an okay team, and then it ended up falling apart on me with Trevor Story, Marte, O'Neill, Laureano, Chris Bryant. Like, they all just got hurt, and I put together a prospect pool of Aranda, Noelvi Marte, Jordan Lawler, Ellie De La Cruz, and Miguel Vargas.
Seems pretty good,
and they're all $1 or $2. So, and I feel like they're all pretty close. So the big thing for me is just going to be deciding on like a $30 Trevor Story, maybe I should just be really aggressive and cut him, even though I have a cheap Austin Riley, a mid-price Jose Ramirez as my core, and some pretty good players around it. Like, maybe just cut Trevor Story, get that money back, and be a little bit more cutthroat. Maybe cut Chris Bryant, even though he's only $20, like just be like in Ottoneu, just be a little bit more like in those years where you think you're close, you keep a $25, $30 veteran that, is going to bounce back because in the auction he'll go for that. But in a league where you think maybe this isn't going to be my year and I'm taking a step back, then you clean up and you're a little bit tighter on the prices. That's sort of where I'm at right now in the decision-making process.
Yeah, there's also the trade aspect of how much are you going to get back in a deal for Bryant? A healthy Bryant in the middle of next season, what is he likely to get you in a trade versus if you take that money and spread it out over a couple of roster spots, do you find more long-term keepers that way? Or do you find better players to trade that way? Are the $10 and $12 players you potentially get back from the auction going to give you more long-term value one way or another than Bryant does via trade?
And maybe I can learn a little bit by putting my $1 Josh Naylor and the $22 Chris Bryant on the roster on the trade block this offseason.
That's right. There's the block.
And just
I gotta play auto new. I really do.
If somebody comes to me with something interesting for Naylor, then I'd be like, okay, that's a warning sign. And nobody's talking to me at all about Chris Bryant. You know, even the contenders that could use a $20, CIOF. Like, I don't know. Maybe that tells me something, and I cut Chris Bryant too.
I think I'm gonna have. If I had 10 leagues next year, I think I'll have Bryant on 2 or 3 teams.
Colorado, man, if he just had a healthy year, that's why he's on my team here. But I
think you'd be right to
you
throw
only
him
have
back.
10 leagues.
I'm just putting a number out there, a nice round number to give you.
I'm gonna try and count here real quick. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh my God, how many leagues do I have in NFBC? So I've got 6 plus an NFBC. I have 3, 6, 7. That's 13, 14. Okay, 14. I've been trying to cut. This is trying to cut. 14 is trying to cut.
I have 8 NFBC. I have 2 that are on Roto. I've got 1 more that's on RT Sports, and then I've got 3 on CBS. So I've got 14 right now. No, I've got a Yahoo one too. I have 15.
15.
Winner.
Winner.
That's right. That's right.
That is actually one of the things that's kind of sad about experts leagues is there's this pressure to join. You like the people, you're either advocating for your site or it's a group. Maybe it'll be publicized or, it's there's always like, oh, join my league if it has this quirk. And you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. I could learn from that, and then you realize, oh my God, I have 15 teams. Like how am I going to spend time on all of them? And I think that's actually maybe the 6 NFBC teams are the main reason my dynasty league suffered this year.
Could be more attention going into those, especially with the bigger buy-in for something like the main event.
There's money on these things, and then also just the work of NFBC is ongoing. You have to look at it to set lineups on Fridays. So you have to look at it on Wednesday and Thursday to set lineups on Fridays. Then you have to kind of do some in-week fab work so that you're not doing it all on Sunday. Then you have to get back to it on Sunday. Then you have to set lineups Monday. It's a lot of work for these leagues. And so you just sort of set the dynasty and you're like, oh, I'll look at those on Tuesday or something. And then on Tuesday, you're like, well, I actually have some work to do.
So I've started to wonder about this in the last couple of years because I've been lucky enough, I got invited to Tout Wars, I think about 10 years ago now. So I've been in it for a little while. I've been in LABR for nearly as long and had some success in both of those leagues. I kind of wonder like what keeps me coming back every year, given all those other factors, right? I mean, life gets busier. We play other formats. You play leagues for money. You start to decide, I don't want to spend as much time on fab anymore because I have other parts of my life that I feel like on Sunday afternoon, I'd like to go do this instead. Whatever that thing is. It could be pickleball. It could be spending time with family. There's no right or wrong answer. So like, what motivates you? What keeps you coming back to a league like that? Because for me, so far, it's just been, I know other people have won 3, 4, 5, 6 times in some of those leagues. So I keep coming back because if I play long enough, maybe I can win 3, 4, 5, 6 times. But okay, so what if I match them someday? What if I catch Larry Schechter or Tristan Cockcroft or
Derek
Zinke or Derek Carty, anybody who's won those leagues more than I've won them? What happens if I do pass them? Do I just say, I'm good now? I mean, it's a little bit like it's the
thought
Tom
this was
Brady problem.
Yeah, it's like what now?
In sport, like in professional sports in our lifetime, this is to me, Tom Brady's might be the best example of the dude. Like, why are you still doing this? Like, what do you have left to prove compared to anybody else?
Why with AL labor well in hand, am I still trying to get that 117th point out of 120? Because I want to set a record that will stand. So there's some of it is legacy building. We want to build on your legacy. Some of it is manufactured naysayers. We're like, well, some people will say it's just because I got Anthony Rizzo and Fab and it was a weird year. And so I got to prove them wrong and win in a normal year. Some of it is community.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the other
labor. We go usually, I mean, we haven't in a little bit because of circumstances, but usually we hang out. And I really enjoy seeing some of the people that I see at labor. So, if the community starts falling apart, that's when you start to see like why, real sort of why am I in this league sort of discussions. And I think honestly, in some of my honor new leagues, sometimes I feel that I wish there was a little bit more active community. At the same time, I've got a bunch of second and third place finishes into those. So much more likely for me to want to win it and quit it than to just admit defeat, So I'm still searching for my first auto win, which is just awful to admit. Still love the platform and still feel like I can do it, but I haven't yet tried the full rebuild. So I think it'll be an auto that I try one of those full rebuilds.
Yeah, I think the friendship is in this case the other part of all this. That's like, well, I don't even think twice about it. I play in these leagues any chance I get because of that. I have also thought after a certain number of years, given that there's a very limited number of spaces in these leagues, if you've had your turn for X number of years, should you consider giving up your spot and letting someone else play in that league? Just because, like, why should I be in the league for 25 years? Like, that doesn't seem. I'm not criticizing anyone who's been there from the beginning.
No, I mean, I think about it in terms of labor because it's me and Ian Connor, two guys from the Athletic, and I've been in there for 10 plus years. So
sure, yeah, if it's one per
we're already represented. Like maybe I should just take a step back. So
well, I know all the things that cross my mind this time of year, and it's exciting. Of course, if you're playing for a championship this weekend, good luck
good luck to everybody.
Battle it out. It's not just this weekend; it's into next week. That's so weird. I'm so used to that first Monday coming out of the
3
weekend.
days next week. Oh, and my keeping Julio Rodriguez it worked out. I was beating myself up over that, thinking it was just sentimentality, and he's coming back Monday. So
hey, see, it's all coming up Eno right now.
Let's not talk about all the misses.
Well, we'll get to those. That's what October is for. But
that's right. We're gonna do some reviews. We're gonna do hits and misses by. It looks like we're gonna do hits and misses by position is gonna be what we do during the playoffs. I think that matches up well with adding some extra news, but during the playoffs.
Yeah. So that is what we have coming up around the corner. Good luck the rest of the way. We will have an episode early next week. I don't know if we've settled on an off-season schedule. It's going to be probably one a week for October, so it might be Tuesday instead of Monday. We'll talk about that, but you'll get an episode from us next week. You got a question for a future episode, ratesandbarrels@theathletic.com is the email address. On Twitter, Eno is at Enosaris. I am at Derek Van Riper. If you don't have a subscription to The Athletic and you'd like to get one, they're $1 a month for the first 6 months at theathletic.com/Rates and Barrels. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you next week.
Thanks for listening.